Basically, the body isn't built correctly from the factory. Sarah now comes down to tell him that she's going out. Abbott isn't concerned, as there's no genetic partner that she'd be interested in, as there's no other pure species. Yeah, that really holds up in light of the first two movies. Hey, where did you get that idea? So, plot hole number 498 aside, Abbott says he already took all of Sarah's eggs anyways, so they don't really have to worry about anything. Alrighty then. Sarah then spots Red-Eyed Monster Man in a hotel as they start getting prison. She says that he has a sickness and he pushes him off, which makes him upsetting. She then heads back home to find Dean on the side. He shows her how to play chess, which she immediately knows how, and also then whoops him at because she's an alien. He then burns his hand like a scrub and then heads back to his door. As his roommate's on the computer, he finds a woman has put out an ad looking for like some serious lab information about molecular biology, like PhD in molecular biology. We are cavemen to these things. But it also appears as though the Cooperman has found her. Back down in the basement, you need a reason to take your shirt off, am I right? They draw some blood from Sarah as she chooses Dean to draw the blood rather than Abbott, which they aren't attracted to humans, but Commander Shepard has taught me different. As they do, a tentacle emerges from the roof and then grabs her. Dean runs in to help as it's doing stuff to Sarah, and he's getting upset. Now, I really didn't need to see any of this. Also, the very obvious cabling and harness system to pull these people and aliens up to the roof. Imagine Earth more screwed than it is now. Difficult, but very much so not impossible. Now imagine humanity knocked back on its heels by a 1-2 punch from not only a massive shift in global environments, but also a concurrent outbreak of a devastating disease that despite our advanced medical technology, we were not able to combat, as the only thing remaining of human society is a single city with small, more scattered feral outposts across the planet. In the events and book and subsequent movies of Maze Runner, that's exactly what happened to Homo sapiens on our backwater planet. The sun being the giver of life is something we consistently and without fail must rely on to keep everything in working order while we try to figure out things down here. However, should an upset in that relationship happen, there's little that we could do to actually rectify the issue. Throw in a disease that moves through a population resulting in bloodthirsty monsters, then you got yourself a pretty good post-apocalyptic scenario that I'm sure, based on current events, we would overcome, right? Well, even if we don't, it's not going to stop this video from being made. In today's episode, we will discuss what happened to Earth and why this devastating disease was able to get a foothold and bring humanity to its knees. Alright, let's get to it. So we all know the drill by now, but if you're a newbie, then there will be a timestamp up on screen. Heading there, you can bypass the summary of these movies. And oh yes, movies. I am literally covering the entire trilogy. But in the interest of time, and honestly, I'm not really sure who's seen it, who hasn't seen it, I'm doing a much more generalized summary of the movies so that this video isn't like 3 years long. But anyhow, again, going to the timestamp up on screen, you can go directly to the actual discussing of the disease in Maze Runner. But now let's get why the balance between Earth and the Sun has ever changed in terms of energy received. We are all just mega screwed. But it's best just to not think about how precarious our entire existence hinges on everything staying the exact same way it is in a universe where chaos seems to reign supreme. The year is 2136, and Earth is both. Out of nowhere, based on how off guard humanity was caught, a raging solar storm would fling a coronal mass ejection at Earth. With no idea this was going to happen and no way to detect it, the world was plunged into strife. The solar flare was so powerful that it scorched the Earth between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, turning it into a desert wasteland. All countries within this belt were pretty much obliterated. Within the first 15 minutes of the solar flare striking Earth, 4.5 billion people were lost. The magnetic field of Earth was also disastrously altered, which resulted in more radiation leaking into the planet, destroying more plant life and giving humans and animals caught at these latitudes lethal doses of radiation. On top of this, it would destroy the atmosphere at those areas, resulting in dangerous storms popping up pretty much seemingly at random that would also scour the surface of the Earth. As time went on, large tsunamis, dangerous storms, and radiation would continue to ravage, taking more people out in the process. Those in the latitudes that weren't located between the Capricorn and Cancer were spared the worst of the damages, as the governments that were left would join a supranational post-flare coalition, or PFC, in an effort to establish order. For a time, they were able to come together and quell the issues that were plaguing humanity at this time, or at least ease them. But ultimately, they would make things worse for Homo sapiens. After a 6-month investigation, it was discovered that the surviving 1.4 billion people would overload the planet. Due to the polar caps melting and rising water levels, which completely inundated the remaining land masses, leaving less to go around, and accompanying this with the failed crops, fresh water disappearing, and dwindling resources, they concluded,
"Ooh, Jimmy John's just got saucy. Try our new wraps made with your favorite buffalo wild wing sauces, only at Jimmy John's."
that there was only enough to go around for roughly about 980 million people. Realizing that they had to take out 30% of the population to fix their resource issues, they would go on to create a by slowing it or fully, in which case they would destroy the virus. This new generation would be captured and placed in trials to study their brain activity and why they were immune. Which, yeah, it does seem like a relatively dumb idea, but hey, ultimately I suppose it would quasi-work. And this drops us into the midst of the first Maze Runner movie. We open up our story with a man that doesn't know his own name. He's in a cage and it's rising fast. After reaching the top at top speed, the cage opens as a group of young men stand around him laughing. He gets out of the cage and immediately begins running off. As he does, he trips and then looks around and finds that there's really nowhere to go. Surrounding him on all sides are massive walls that cannot be scaled. Realizing there is no escaping, he is then captured quickly by the others and placed in a holding cell until he calms down. Eventually, he meets the group's leader, Albie, and the second in command, Newt. Getting the rundown, they walk through the town as he's oriented to his current predicament. Eventually, meeting up with Chuck, the village's medic type person, he begins to walk towards the opening of the wall after he spots it. As he begins to question what exactly it is, he's eventually stopped by the enforcer of the group, Gal. As they argue about why he was stopped, walls begin to close, and it was revealed that he was actually just saved because if he had walked in there at night, he would have been trapped and would have been taken out by whatever is beyond the walls at night. Later that night, a celebration is being held with the group. Eventually, Gally then confronts Greedy, as he's known, and continues to call him a shank. He enters the circle and then attacks him, but eventually he is thrown and hits his head really hard. As he does, he remembers his name is Thomas, as the group can finally put a name to his face. Thomas realizes at this point that there really is no escape from the place, and begins helping with the daily chores that the rest of the group are doing. As he does, he's then sent to the wooded portion of the glade. While there, he finds gravestones, and then is attacked by one of the former runners of the group. As he apparently had been stung and infected with the virus, the results of this are that he remembers Thomas and knows what he did, but can't articulate it very well. Eventually, Thomas is able to run out of the forest after fighting him as the group pulls the infected away. They shove him back into the walled area as the door closes, sealing his fate. The next day, Minho and Albie both go into the maze attempting to look for an escape. However, after they were in there the entire day, the group begins amassing at the door to look for them. As they do, they spot Minho dragging Albie, who has been stung and infected. Before the door shuts, Thomas then runs in to help but gets sealed on the other side, which turns into a whole other set of problems. Basically, being sealed in there at night isn't really a good thing. Creatures known as grievers are released, which immediately begin to hunt them. Thomas is able to raise Albie up and hide him as Minho abandons him. This leads Thomas on a chase with the creature as it corners him many times, but eventually, as morning begins to break, the walls shift once more, crushing the griever in the process. As the doors open up the next morning, they come out carrying Albie, with all three of them having survived. Albie is looking pretty infected at this point. They hold a meeting to discuss Thomas's punishment, with Gally looking pretty upsetty spaghetti, seeing as Thomas broke the rules, and now those things could come seeking retribution. As they continue to discuss, the elevator is then sent up, this time with a girl named Teresa. She has a note saying that this will be the last one, which alarms the group as things seem to be changing. Heading back to the maze, they attempt to take apart the griever, finding that part of it is actually mechanical and the other part is flesh. Removing a stinger from its arm, they find a beeping piece of machinery marked 7 on it. Now that Thomas is a runner, Minho then goes on to show him a diorama of the entire maze. They have completely mapped it out before, but then have found no way to actually escape. However, there is a designated area that has 7 on it, which they rightly deduced the Griever 7 may somehow activate something. After this, they have a whole love interest thing going on, so Thomas then calms down Teresa, but nobody really cares. Then he informs her of where they are, what they're doing, and Gally throws Thomas into a holding cell as part of his punishment, but is really just angry about how the balance may have been disrupted around them. The next day, Minho and Thomas head out to locate Area 7. Taking a piece of the griever, they end up finding a door and opening it, but are scanned. As they are, however, issues begin to arise all around them. The entire maze starts falling apart, and they barely just escape. Getting back to the glade, they find that the injection that they had gotten has actually worked on Albie's sting, saving his life. However, Albie is now privy to the truth and realizes that the maze isn't really worth leaving, which sort of bums everybody out around them. When night rolls around and the doors aren't shutting anymore, leaving them fearful that they may be completely exposed to the grievers. And exposed to the grievers they are! More doors begin opening up that night, with the main door not closing, resulting in an attack on the glade. Many of the group members are ripped away and ended in the attack before a small number of them are able to barricade themselves in the town hall, which is still overwhelmed. Albie is able to save Chuck and then knock off the stinger of the griever, but ultimately would be pulled out and taken. Thomas says he needs to remember what's happening and then injects himself with a stinger, and ultimately does remember that he used to work for a company that put them all there. Realizing that they need to escape, Thomas then takes his group and Gally keeps his. Thomas then heads into the maze to leave the place finally. While in there, they run across a few grievers and then continue to fight their way through, losing a few in the process, before finally finding a door and opening it. As they follow the green exit sign, they enter the They watched Dr. Page talk about how they are the future and some are immune to the disease and how they weren't able to stop it, but they needed to. Now that I have completely psyched myself out, there are those who have probably been waiting for about 5 years or so for me to cover Alien, and it's finally time to talk about this wretched abomination and the molecular acid it contains, as well as the benefits of what that might be over regular blood, and also discuss the lateral genetic exchange that is clearly going on between the facehuggers and humans. A ship as the Nostromo would be returning home from a mining operation in deep space, only to have the crew awoken up early by the ship's computer known as Mother. Seemingly their ship had just happened upon a signal on a planet near the Zeta Reticuli system, which is actually pretty interesting and way off topic, but the video I covered on Roanoke Tales, there are a couple who claimed to have been harassed by aliens, and they looked somewhat human, but not. You guys ever just sat in a meeting before and just kind of zoned out? Did you enjoy that? Well, if you did, then I've got a movie for you. In the events of Shin Godzilla, first off, Godzilla was awesome. Second, this could have legitimately been like an